Zoom. We thank you that we can record this meeting as well. That's awesome, all the technology that we have. And we ask that you would give us wisdom. Maybe a prayer for us. All right, this meeting is being recorded, and we will continue to do that. Okay, so I've been asking what it is we should do next. We have a hermeneutics class coming up, probably by September. But in the meantime, we've got another 6 or 7 weeks before that time. So I want to do something a little more applicational. Most people come on here because they want something that blows their mind, is different than what they normally think. Whether it's right or wrong, it's just different and allows them to challenge themselves. That will not be happening today. Nothing is going to be all that challenging today. I need to change my views again.
Sorry, Sarah doesn't know how to do other things, and I got here late.
Okay, well, I also don't know how to do these things. How do I make this thing?
Gallery view.
Yep, I couldn't find the view button. All right. So nice to have you, Travis, finally.
I had another meeting that was supposed to be done an hour ago, or an hour and a half ago, that went way too long.
They got work to do, I understand. This happens to all of us. All right, so we're talking about wisdom. So you can unmute yourself right now if you want to. I want to hear when you go to bookstores, which I know all of you do, or you go to Amazon, if you are not one of those bookstore kind of people, what are the kinds of books you look for so you can learn how to do stuff? Does anybody read those kind of books? How to whatever?
Most of YouTube.
Yeah, Google.
For Dummies books.
So no, wait, what did you say, Hannah?
The For Dummies books.
Okay, the For Dummies books. All right, which is your favorite? Like, which one are you looking to find out about?
Oh.
How do I get my children to stop misbehaving for dummies?
My children? No.
No, not yours. I know Moses and yeah, okay. So probably not like how to lose 100 pounds in 6 weeks.
Home improvement probably for me. Jeremy has a fly fishing one, he's telling me.
All right, fly fishing, how to fly fish. Good.
How to Argue and Win Every Time by Jerry Spence. Good book.
Ooh, okay. All right. I just downloaded the how to negotiate without giving away half or something like that. I can't remember what the name of it is.
There's a good one if you want negotiating called Getting to Yes. Also good.
Getting to Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right now, I read all the dating and relationships books.
That's
So
right. So how to seduce a man in 6 easy steps.
No, not quite. How to have that awkward DTR and, how to have a good first date, how to get a second date.
All right. That probably requires just calling that person back most of the time. Okay. So,
I don't know. I just read the Hunger Games and figure out how to survive. So that's my go-to.
I don't think the Hunger Games is meant to be a how to survive book. I think you're reading that wrong. I don't know who said that, but can anybody hear me? Because I can't hear.
Yes.
What's the district with the road cops?
All right. My internet's terrible. I'm sorry. That's what took me so long. All of you are just frozen with, at least you're all frozen with a smile on your face. So that's helpful. Except for Karen, who has her hand up. So I guess she's the one who said Hunger Games at the moment that I spoke. Sit down. Okay. All right. So we're looking for 10 easy steps to a fit body, or how to become a millionaire, or how to play soccer like the World Cup, or 666 techniques to mortify sin, something like that, right? This is what we're doing. We're trying to find these techniques in our life. There's 1,000 books on how to do this. Most of you have had children, so you probably have read something on how to raise children, how to get them to sleep through the night. Yes?
We're good fundamentalists. We only read the Bible.
You only read the Bible. All right. So you read the Bible. how to be a good husband, how to be a good wife, how to be a good woman, right? Proverbs 31 is right in there. How to, yeah, that's also how to raise your children, right? That's in the Bible. It's right there in Ephesians, exactly how you're supposed to read the Bible. I mean, how you're supposed to raise your children. So we think, at least in our minds, that if we just read these techniques, if we get these techniques, that we'll be successful, we won't fail. So, but you probably know, like, even though you get these books and they might help you a little bit, they don't actually work. Okay, so I can't handle everybody just completely frozen the whole time. So I'm gonna have to try and do something because nobody has moved. So I need some sort of interaction. Otherwise I'm just teaching to nothing. So sorry, Facebook Live people, or what do I don't know what to do exactly here, but I'm trying to figure something out.
Maybe log out and log back in, but we'll have to, like, get you all set up.
Now, while he's doing this, we should all just disappear.
I'll move. Everybody go like this when he comes back.
Well, that would not be nice. I can hear you, but I can't see you. Actually, I can see him on Facebook Live. That one on the side here, I can see his face from a different angle, which is a little weird. Oh, he's back.
All of you have changed positions, which is wonderful.
It's gonna mess up
We're
again.
still not.
Hold on.
You're all gone all together.
We can see you move. Sort of.
Do you want me to just leave it in like the gallery deal?
Hi, Jen. Hi, Carol. On Facebook Live. Sorry, we're having technical difficulties. No, I connected to my phone. It never did, yeah. So I gave up trying yours. Unsuccessful. I don't even see yours on here. Be working because we have Wi-Fi. Okay. Okay, I see 3 of you. Well, at least I've got Sarah and Hannah. That's all that really matters.
That's all
You
you
guys
need.
smile and act like you're really interested in what I'm saying, then maybe.
There's not enough.
Hey, it's Steiner. Hey, Stephanie's here too. Okay, well, I'll just try to keep going, and maybe I'll end early if I get frustrated. All right, so we're talking about wisdom. We're talking about raising kids, because that's what Proverbs is talking about, raising children. So this might be a little helpful for you, but it also might be helpful in raising yourself and trying to get your own wisdom. So I'm guessing none of your kids have turned out exactly the way that you hoped they would. I know Stephanie Steiner is going to raise her hand right now. She's like, yeah, nope, definitely did not. But, no, I'm just kidding. I can't, you're not even laughing, so I can't do anything.
There's like 3 more people.
Oh, I can't see them from there. That's too far away. Oh, well, I'm gonna look both. Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, you're doing all the techniques. You're doing all the Googling. You're doing all the how do I get more information in my head? And right, we all have that information. We've got that like supercomputer in our hands all the time. We can answer any question that we need. The problem is that we still don't have wisdom. The world is desperately lacking in wisdom. We need practical answers. The knowledge, all that knowledge brings us, right? Pride. Right? The more we know, the more we get puffed up. I think King James says something like that. It says, knowledge puffeth up and charity edifieth. Yeah, that's good King James language. Love encourages, but knowledge puffs us up or gets us arrogant. So, and you can see this in the world, right? You guys know all the different people out there that have gotten rich over scratching off a lotto ticket or basketball fame or these things, and they're broke 10 years later or 2 years later. They just spend all of their money. I don't know about you, but if somebody gave me a couple $1 million, I'm pretty sure it would still be there long after. I feel like I have enough wisdom to at least handle that. But the world is lacking in wisdom. Anybody still listening? Anyone still able to hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Okay. All right. Well, I can hear Sarah. So you're pretty much the only one that I'm talking to right now. So.
Rock on.
Nice to meet you. So how do we keep wisdom? How do we gain wisdom to begin with? We have all of these people throughout like our culture that are famous, and they just constantly do stupid things. Anybody who's actually able to talk to me, give me any example. Can anyone hear me? Give me an example.
That puts a lot of pressure on me if I'm the only person that you can hear.
I think you are the only person I can hear. Yep. And Davin. Good. Anybody, like, how about kids that sue their parents? Or superstars that divorce their wives and think somehow the grass is going to be greener on the other side? Or what other things do people do lacking wisdom?
I think things people do. They organize response events to things without thoroughly planning them out.
Okay, that sounds like it might not be just a hypothetical thing in you saw on TV one time, right?
Correct.
So the world is full of stupid people. Can we at least agree on that?
Amen.
All right. So what did John Wayne say? Life is hard. It's harder when you're stupid.
They consult their lawyer after they do the thing that they should consult them about.
Yeah, that's true. Although, yeah, sometimes you do those things out of like just passion and stuff like that. Then you have to call a lawyer later. But you're right. It might be good to get the lawyer on your side first. All right. So because I'm not able to do quite the talking back and forth, which is what most of this is planned to be, let's talk about the difference between sin and foolishness. Or maybe let's not talk about it because we can't really discuss it. So there is a difference between sin and foolishness, right? There's unethical things that we do, and then there's things that are unwise to do. But what I want to do over the next few weeks is show you that I think these are a lot more connected than we think they are. That people are foolish and sinful, and maybe these ideas are actually the same idea. Not always, but they're closer. So let's talk about these verses. Proverbs. If you've got a Bible, I'll pretend that you're quickly turning in your Bible there or in your phone to this. Look at the very first couple verses. It says here, verse 2, it says for attaining wisdom and discipline, for understanding words of insight, for acquiring a disciplined and prudent life, doing what is right and just and fair, for giving prudence to the simple, knowledge and discretion to the young. Let the wise listen and add to their learning, and let the discerning get guidance. For understanding proverbs and parables, the sayings of the wise. So this is a book that we're going to be looking at that's specifically designed for the young, for children, for this young man who is on his journey, every day moving in the right direction. It's just a help to get us there. It's not a book. You shouldn't look at this book to get answers to things. It's a path book. So it's not a door. If you open it up, you're just going to come up with the right answers. It's this path that it opens the door and it leads you somewhere. It helps us navigate. It's a map to getting us somewhere, but it doesn't just take us right there. So it's, I think Nietzsche said, it's an everyday obedience in the same direction. Eugene Peterson stole it later on, right? Everyday obedience. So very seldom are you going to come up with a question like, should I move across the country and take a job? Should I marry this person? Should I give $1 million away? Right? Those are not everyday kinds of questions. Those are maybe once in a lifetime kinds of questions. But what Proverbs does for you, he's not going to answer that question, but what it does is it gives you practical advice for how to do the little steps every day so that when the big steps come up, you'll be ready for them, right? So should you move across the country? Well, what kind of friends do you have? What kind of anger issues do you have? It's all these little things that help apply to whatever the big decision is. Should I give money away, $1 million? Well, have you been giving a little bit of money away at a time? Has there been some kind of consistency in what you are doing? All right, we're going to finish this real quick with no conversation. So, yeah, this is the hardest.
Can you really not hear any of us?
I can hear you right now, but I can't see anybody.
Should we do a test to see if you can hear anyone else?
I'm here.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
You hear me?
I can hear people on his phone. No. Okay, give me some. I did hear a few people. Yes, I just can't see any of you moving. I can't tell whether you're interacting with this or whether you're gone now or anything. So it's really hard.
We're all vibrantly moved. Just imagine it, and then you'll get voices every once in a while.
All right. Well, it's not an easy way to teach, I gotta say. I look forward to having a classroom again someday where everybody's actually there.
Can you refresh the Zoom or restart it or something?
I've done that. I don't even know how many times.
Bummer.
Yep. But thanks. All right. So I want you to know I'm very I don't know how to do all this. So all right, paremiology. Paremiology. Anybody heard that word before?
No.
How about
New one for me.
paremiography? Maybe you're a paremiologist. Okay, so we've got all these paremiologists here. All of you are experts on the Proverbs now.
Awesome.
A paremiologist is someone who is wise, somebody who is learning wisdom. Paremiography, of course, is the writings of wisdom or the proverb books that we're looking at specifically. So chapter 1 starts off of Proverbs with Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel. So that's what we're talking about. These proverbs, these specific things. So somebody give me a definition for proverb. What's a proverb? Or tell me a proverb. Since I can hear you all, I can't see you. Tell me a proverb, one that you've heard of before.
A wise saying.
A wise saying. That's brilliant. Good job.
As iron sharpens iron, so one sharpens another.
Okay. As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. Yep. That's pretty good. That comes from like Ecclesiastes or something.
Proverbs.
Is it?
Yeah.
Don't go with Lady Folly. Yep. That's a good summary of a lot of the proverbs. Does anybody have a good proverb they like from the past?
Don't put off today what you can do. Don't put off tomorrow what you can do today.
Right, good. Yeah. I had to think that one through there.
It's better to be alone in the corner of an attic and with the contentious working.
Better to be alone in the corner of an attic than to be married with to a contentious wife. Yep. Guys are all saying amen to that.
I was gonna say that one.
That's a good one. Yeah. Stitch in time.
Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding.
Good.
In all your ways acknowledge him and he will make your path straight.
Okay, good.
Bird in the hand is worth two in the bush.
Bird in your hand is worth two in the bush. That's right. Because you haven't caught the two yet. Good. So we've grown up with these little sayings that we've been learning. So here's some definitions. I just threw a whole bunch. If you've got the notes, you can see them there. I'm pretty far down into the notes at this point, skipping all kinds of stuff. But it says definitions. Is drawn from long experiences. Much matter decocted into a few words. I gotta say, I haven't heard the word decocted before, but that's one of the words. The wisdom of one and the wisdom of many. Someone says a proverb has three qualities: shortness, sense, and salt. I like that one. I thought that was good. Shortness, sense, and salt. And here is the noted perennialogist Wolfgang Minder. So if you're going to quote anybody, you should definitely quote a preeminent perennialogist. He says, a short, generally known sentence of the folk, which contains wisdom, truth, morals, and traditional views in a metaphorical, fixed, and memorizable form, which is handed down from generation to generation. Aren't you so glad you got all that? Yeah.
Definitely.
So, here is one definition. Better than theirs, right? Or at least you have to pretend. A snappy sagacity. Isn't that brilliant? That's just so awesome. Here, I have a terse intelligence.
Wow.
Terse means short, quick. I assume so. Okay. And abrupt acumen, right? What mine also have is this, right? And the alliterative ideas, at least, snappy sagacity, terse intelligence, those kinds of things going for them, so they're easily memorizable. That's what we're talking about here. So let's talk about the guy himself, Solomon. You guys know about Solomon. Tell me something you know about Solomon.
David's son.
He was a son of David.
Incredibly wise.
Incredibly wise. Sometimes. Excellent. That's true. And that's the main thing what I got here.
Built the temple.
Built the temple. Yep.
A lot of wives.
Lots of wives. So probably not that wise. Okay, so he's the guy, you remember the story, right? There's this story about God asking him what he wants. And he said, you can have all these things, anything you want. And he said, I want wisdom. I'm looking for wisdom. So here's the way I want you to start thinking. We're not going to talk about this in great detail, at least till next week and maybe the week after. But I want you to think of Solomon as Adam. As a new Adam. He has this choice between wisdom and not having wisdom, and he chooses the tree of life instead of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. He chooses God's path instead of his path. So Solomon is getting the chance to be Adam again at this crossroads, getting to choose what he wants, and he's going to choose the right thing. He's going to choose wisdom. But then, of course, you know Solomon. Right? So let's be careful not to just say that Solomon is the wisest king ever. He is a wise king. He is looking to do right things. It doesn't mean that he's going to be the smartest of all the people. It kind of means that he is going to be the Sherlock Holmes of the king. Okay? He's going to be able to figure out things. He's going to look at somebody and he's going to know certain things. Like, okay, that baby, we don't know which baby that one is. Remember that story, right? Cut the baby in half, then give it to both. Okay? There's the ability to look and to see things and to think about these kinds of things. So much ability, right, that even the Queen of Sheba comes. The foreigners come and they say how wise he is and how wealthy he is and how this kingdom is basically a new Eden. Solomon brings us back to Eden. That's what we've been hoping for. Except for he doesn't always do that, does he? This is not exactly the wisest of all kings. As someone has already said, he has hundreds of wives that he does, that he brings into his harem or into his palace, or however, political reasons, sensual reasons, whatever the case, he brings all of these in. And his children aren't raised well, and he loses his kingdom. So this Solomon guy is a great example of both sides. Sometimes an absolute foolishness sometimes. So he's actually a picture of all of us, isn't he? We're all having the same struggle in our life, I'm guessing. Some of us are wise some of the time and foolish some of the time. You can look back over the last year and think of how many times you've done incredibly stupid things. At least I can. And sometimes you can look back and see you did a couple of good things, did some wise things. So wisdom is this insight. It's knowing how things should work, how things really are, and knowing what you should do about it in this particular instance. So Von Rad says, it's becoming competent in regard to the realities of life. So why do we want this? It's probably pretty obvious why we want wisdom, right? Without wisdom, we have death. This is going to be a theme throughout all of the Bible. So no wisdom, okay, if we have no wisdom, it's going to equal death, or exile, or separation. Okay, do you remember the story of David and Absalom? Absalom wants his kingdom, wants David's kingdom. David is on the run, and Ahithophel was a counselor, a wise counselor of David's. And Ahithophel changed sides. He went to Absalom. So David has this big plan in motion. He wants to go, he wants to defeat his son, take the kingdom back, do all of these things. But he knows that he's going to lose if Ahithophel gives wisdom to Absalom, because Ahithophel is this great strategist. He can see everything going on. He's like that guy playing soccer, that halfback right in the middle, who can see the whole field and he knows where to be at the right time. That's what you want, right? This is Ahithophel. So he sends a guy named Hushai in. Hushai goes in, hangs out with Ahithophel and Absalom. Absalom calls these two counselors in and says, what should I do? And Ahithophel says, strike now. This is the time. David is weak. We want to do this. And Hushai says, oh, wait a second. You know this David guy. I mean, your dad, you know him really well. He's eluded us before. If he eludes us, which is probably going to happen, he's going to have this great chance to jump in. I think it's best to just let him get crushed on his own. Like he's just let him fall back. Don't push things, and you'll just take over. Okay. He actually appeals to Absalom's arrogance. Like, everybody loves you the most. It's okay. You'll be good. And Ahithophel, here's what he says. Well, Absalom says, okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to follow Hushai. Remember, Hushai is a spy. He's a plant. He works for David. We've gone into Absalom to give him this false information. So Ahithophel hears that Absalom has taken his advice, Hushai's advice. He goes home. It says that he, what are the exact words? He saddles his donkey, he goes home, and he kills himself. So he understands that if the king doesn't have wisdom and doesn't listen to good advice, that all is lost. That's how important wisdom is. So we live in this world without wisdom, but it's really the thing that we need the most. I'm pretty persuaded that wisdom, I don't have actually the word wisdom on this board, so I can't keep looking at it. The word wisdom is the big picture theme of Scripture. From Genesis 1 through Proverbs into the prophets, Jesus himself is called wisdom in Colossians, elsewhere, even in Luke, right? We're going to talk about that. He's the one who grows in wisdom and stature and favor with God and man. He's the one who's arguing with the rabbis in the temple, right? He has all of this wisdom, this intelligence that he's able to put to good use. He can bring all these things together. So that's what wisdom is for. So our job as parents, our job as people, as neighbors, as people in the church that are molding other people's children, things like that, and molding our own selves, is to figure out what this wisdom looks like. Because children, by definition, are not wise, right? That's why we say they're childish. Don't be childish, right? Because the whole idea is that they're growing up, and that's normal. It's fine for them not to be wise yet. We're hoping that they become wiser. So kids, just watch MTV or watch any of these kids shows, and you can see, watch almost any TV show, you can see the lack of wisdom that's on there, right? And we keep getting this wisdom from children. If you're in a boy band, you don't have a right to talk about what's going on in politics yet, I don't think. Right? You got to get to a certain point in life before you can start talking about those kinds of things.
Reach it.
Hey, Jace, I gotta jump in here a second. So Darcy and I, we don't watch any of the Disney TV kids shows.
Yeah.
Because they all portray the children, the kids, as very wise, and the adults as buffoons. And to us, that's just absolutely ridiculous.
Yep. Yeah. I recall my parents also wouldn't let me watch like Simpsons when I was younger, because Bart seemed to be the wise one if there was such wisdom, but Homer was the idiot. And it was always, it does seem to always be that case, right? But the reality is that we know that they're not actually wise. That's why we call them childish. So we don't need to be listening to those people for their advice. So any children listening right now, don't get your information from Disney TV for sure.
Or The Simpsons.
And don't go back in time and say, you know what? Back in the old days, they used to be wise, right? Back when we used to watch Leave It to Beaver and Ozzie and Harriet, right? They weren't any wiser, probably. The kids then, even the parents then, there may have been something more, but I mean, look how Ozzie and Harriet Nelson, look how their kids turned out. Go ahead and Google that sometime, okay? Not well. Okay, so there's something more than just growing up in one time or the other. Okay, so anyway, there's no good old days, right? Since Genesis 1 and 2 ended, there's no more. It's always been hard to teach wisdom to our children. Okay, so let's talk about proverbs that exist outside of Proverbs, because our book is not the only book that has them in there. Throw a few of these in here. There's a king of Aram, which is Syria, who they threatened to level Samaria, and the king of Israel answered in defiance. Here it is, 1 Kings 20. It says, one who puts on his armor should not boast like one who takes it off. Okay, so I'm just giving you another proverb just for fun. One who puts on his armor should not boast like one who has taken it off. Or we might say, don't count your chickens before they're hatched. It's a good proverb. So this one is outside of the book of Proverbs. Luke says, when there's a dead body, then the vultures will gather. So there's some proverbs that exist outside of there. These mashals, M-A-S-A-L, Phileo is the Greek word for proverb. But these mashals are all over the place. So 1 Samuel 24, I wrote down, from evildoers come evil deeds, so my hand will not touch you. These are little short sayings. You can get proverbs in every country. If you've ever been overseas anywhere, I got a whole book of African proverbs, which are just wonderful. They're really awesome. I just wrote one. He who befriends the beetle is brought presents of dung. Okay?
Nice.
Basically saying, choose your friends wisely. Okay? Don't be friends with a beetle because they're going to bring you dung gifts. It's not a nice thing to do. Here's two proverbs that disagree with each other. Whoever climbs a tree in a hurry falls down badly. And whoever arrives at the mountaintop first chooses the stone on which to sit. Two proverbs. One says, get there quickly. It's very wise to get there quickly. The other one says, don't go too quickly. Okay, we've got these two, right? Look before you leap. He who hesitates is lost. What should we do? Should we jump in or should we not jump in? Okay, so what we need to know about Proverbs is...
It depends on the facts.
It depends on what?
The facts.
Right, yeah. Every situation is different. This is why Proverbs are important. They're not laws. They're not rules. They're not things we should follow and we should know this is the way they're happening. They are helpful things that work in certain situations.
The law depends on the facts too.
What does?
I said for us lawyers, the law depends on the facts too. There's actually a trier of facts and a trier of the law. So
yeah,
it is kind of, but in like the deeper understanding of the law. So.
Well, so that's what I want to talk about in a couple of weeks. I want to talk about how law, did I write that anywhere? How law and wisdom work together. Because I think what you're saying is that these actually have a lot more similarities than differences. If you go deep down, there's a whole context behind the laws, just like there's a context behind wisdom. There are facts that are deeper, that make the law no longer be quite as strong, right? That it's not automatic. So every law that's given, we have, I don't know what we have in today's laws, but we have apodictic laws and casuistic laws, right? So these case laws matter. It depends on the context. They don't apply always the same way. That's why we have a judge to make decisions for us. So judges are supposed to be the most wise of all of them. This is how wisdom is going to work throughout the Bible. This is how law is going to work. So what I've been talking with a couple of you guys about is what are we supposed to do about the rules in the Bible? That's where I want to get to with this. What do we do with the rules? Do we have to follow the rules or not? Or you don't get to answer that question yet today. So we have all these different proverbs. So he who hesitates lost, look before you leave. Proverbs 24 says this: do not answer a fool according to his folly, or you will be like him yourself. The very next verse says, answer a fool according to his folly, or he'll be wise in his own eyes. Should you answer a fool according to his folly or not? The answer is yes, sometimes, no, sometimes.
Are you worried about what the fool thinks or what other people think?
Well, yeah, that's true too. Or should you be worried about what's right? So, Proverbs, the point of all of that is to say that Proverbs are general truisms. Do not read Proverbs and take from Proverbs facts for your future. Like, they're not going to necessarily apply to you. They apply in certain situations. They're very helpful at some times. So if I were to say something like, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. You cannot take this as a covenant promise to you from God that if you've done a good job training your child, he will therefore become a Christian and all will be well. Okay, first of all, it's not about becoming a Christian at all, but whatever it's about, it's not a guarantee. It's a general truism. If I raise my children wisely, then they will probably end up being wise. They will probably make good decisions when they get older, at least more than not. Is this automatic? Of course not, right? You all know plenty of great parents that have raised their children in the best possible way, way better than you ever could have, and their kids are disasters, and yours turned out okay. That happens. So don't blame yourself necessarily. You can certainly look at yourself and find out, but don't blame yourself necessarily. So these are general truisms, no covenant decrees or laws. It's a totally different genre. So there's a few, I don't know why I wrote all these in here. I was just trying to give you a lot of information, but there's Mesopotamian proverbs. Do not make a guarantee for some. The person will have a hold on you. Spare not your son from the rod, otherwise can you save him from his wickedness? If I beat you, my son, you will not die, but if I leave you alone, you will not live. So these are Mesopotamian proverbs. They sound very similar to our proverbs in the Bible, right? Spoil the rod. What does it know? Spare the rod, spoil the child, right? We've got that one in our English one. So do we really mean that we should beat our child with a rod?
Yes.
Well, yes. All right. Sarah's going to do that. The rest of us will not. There's Sumerian, there's Akkadian, there's Egyptian proverbs that look just like ours in Proverbs 22. Okay, so I'm pretty much finished. This has been really difficult for me to try to stay with you guys, but I want to talk about something, just like a couple things to get us into the next time that we talk, or while you're thinking about this in the future. Let's talk about this, the way the structure of the book is. Because I want to deal with this Solomon-Adam thing.
I want to hear about this Solomon Adam thing.
Good. I'm grateful for you saying that, whoever said that. It sounded like maybe my son, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, good. All right, so the structure. Let's talk about structure. When we think of Proverbs, we think about all these little short, snappy sagacities, right? These little tiny things. Do this, did it, that's it. But in reality, that doesn't start until chapter 10. So that's 10 through 31, kind of. But there's a whole other section here that starts things off. Like this says, the Proverbs of Solomon. And then when you get to chapter 10, it says the Proverbs of Solomon. And then when you get to chapter, I don't know, 29?
Yeah.
I can't remember. It says the Proverbs of Agur and the Proverbs of Lemuel. I'm doing this from memory, so it's somewhere at the end of the book. I don't know. Okay, Agur, at least for sure, is not even a Israelite king. So the kings, we don't have him listed anywhere. Lemuel maybe, but we're not sure, right? But we have a non-Israelite king. So what we're trying to get across is that whoever is wise is getting their wisdom in a divine way. Wisdom in and of itself is divine. Okay, we're going to read about that in chapter 8 when we get there. Okay, that wisdom is birthed from God or comes from God in some way. So anybody who's wise is getting that from God, whether they know it or not, even if they're non-Hebrew kings. Okay, but kings have to be wise because that's how you set up your kingdom. So then there's chapter 31, at least the second part of chapter 31. So B, which we all know is the Proverbs 31 woman that all of you feel like you fail in all the time, ladies, but that you should remember is not written for women. Okay, so we'll talk about that a little bit later. But this structure, this is supposed to meet with this. Okay, this is the culmination of all of this. This is about this path and this crossroads. So I want you to picture Adam on a road here, or you can picture Cain on a road here, or you can picture pretty much anybody on this path that's given a decision to make, right? Here's the tree, okay? And here's the apple. Will Adam take this even though he was told not to? Will he be wise in his own eyes, or will he be wise the way God has called him to be wise? Which is going to be his choice? And as you know, he chooses the wrong path. Okay, so this is the way it's going to be set up. What you're going to have in the first 9 chapters is a lady named Folly and a lady named Wisdom. And then you're going to have a son. You're going to have a father. Okay, the father is Solomon. Okay, it doesn't matter if it's really Solomon. That's not really the point here. But it is a king of wisdom, a royal father, somebody who is enduing his knowledge and his wisdom, his instruction, all of these words into someone else, into the younger one. These are your 4 characters in the book. Folly is awesome. Okay? Folly mixes drinks really well. She calls to all the people. She says, come up here. But everything that she does is in secret and discreet. These are the kinds of words you're going to constantly get up here. Okay? Like in darkness. Come, let us do this together. Let us do it in secret, in darkness, so people can't tell what we're doing. Okay? Anybody still there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. No movement. So.
Yep, we're here.
All right. That's what's going on for Folly. Wisdom has the same thing. She's also up in her house seducing this young man. Okay? The young man, it's called the petty, or the youth. Petty comes from the word patak, which means open. Okay, I'm doing most of this from memory, so it's not in my notes. If you're looking, there's no notes that have anything to do with this. But it comes from the word open. So someone who is not very wise, right? Or just not old enough yet to have experience. They're open to different things. So, that 16, 17, 18-year-old kid, 13-year-old boy who's seeing this hot girl who's trying to seduce him, they don't know enough to say no yet. They're just like, yes, please, right? Because there's just they haven't been given that kind of wisdom. They're open. So Folly and Wisdom both do their seducing, but she does it for, this is certain people. This is for all. She calls out to all, which is very interesting. But she also mixes the best drinks. Those of you who are like alcohol, like this is your Wisdom is a great mixer of drinks. Okay, she can do the best possible things. We'll talk about that more next week. All right. Both of them are trying to get you into bed. Okay, but they're trying to do it from different perspectives. Okay, one Wisdom, one Folly. Remember, they're just metaphors. They're not actual women. Okay, which should clue you into this. Okay, chapter 31 is not about an actual woman either. Right? It's about Lady Wisdom, the culmination of all of that. Okay, so the father is going to give advice to the son. Whatever you do, don't go the path of folly, go the path of wisdom. Adam, here's what I want you to do. I want you to choose wisdom my way, not your way. This is man's wisdom. Foolishness. This is God's wisdom. Wisdom leads to life. Folly leads to death, which is exile. So Adam ends up failing. He was open and he chose the wrong path. He ended up getting exiled. That makes sense?
Yeah, I'm following.
Do you see how this is the same story? The Proverbs story is the same as the Adam story? Yes. So Solomon is our chance to redo everything. Okay? What will we decide, Solomon? Will you be wise or will you be foolish? And the Solomon stories, if you read them, right? If you read through Kings, you're going to see that he chooses folly as often as he uses wisdom. Even though he's the wise king, the wisest of all the kings, he's often going to make bad decisions. Adam, which is just mankind, is going to do the same thing. He's going to constantly be making bad decisions, right? So he's just you. Whether you're a son or a daughter, whatever your position, you are being seduced by these two ways of living throughout your life. Will you take this cigarette? Will you take these drugs? Will you take this alcohol? Will you take this woman? Will you take this man? Will you, I don't know, what are your evil things? Will you get this horrible tattoo on your arm of justice or something like that, right? Whatever it happens to be. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Joshua has one too. Not the same thing, but it's awesome. Yeah, I see it. Now you're frozen in that spot, just with your bicep, just like.
Nice.
Your brother,
What?
your son.
No, this is Travis with that one. Yeah, Caden can't show you his because his is on his chest. He could show it to you, but he can't move, so he's frozen. Maybe but lots of you guys have tattoos. I know. I'm just kidding about that. Whatever it is that your folly is, whatever your foolishness is, you're looking back in your life, or maybe you're looking back a week ago, and you see there's much foolishness there, right? We all go back and forth between these. So this is what Proverbs is going to give for us. It's a dad saying, here's what I want you to do. I want you to live in wisdom. I want you to think about what path you're going to go. He who hesitates is lost, or look before you leap. Make this decision on a regular basis. And we need to be making these little decisions every single day. Every hour, we're making little decisions, one foot in front of the other, these little tiny steps, so that when we get to the big decisions, we can make them. Those big ones that really matter, like, should I get married? Or should I retire? Or should I change churches? Or I'm looking around, should I start my own business? Or should I do some new single faith thing? Should I quit my job? I think I may have already said that one. Should I build a house in another state away from my best friends in the world who need brownies, but I'm going to do it anyway, darn it. Should I think I got most of you guys. Should I take a trip to Indiana with my family and then I have to go back home? So that was for you, Todd. I think you just took a trip to Indiana. So I don't know what your different wisdom things are, but this is where you are on this list. So here are all these things that are going to give you the specifics to how to do it. These little ideas that will help you in your path of wisdom. All right, so I want to do this again, but I want to do it in greater detail. And what I want to do is I want to walk through chapters 1 through 9, especially chapter 8. And you'll see folly, what she cries out. You'll see wisdom, what she cries out. And you'll see this picture of what life looks like, right? So that we will not be exiled, right? By the way, the exile of the New Testament is just, we just call it hell, usually, right? Or darkness, or alone, right? Separation. So the exile still continues in some sense, although Jesus come to end the exile. So, all right, any thoughts, any questions? I went through this a lot faster because I couldn't participate very well with you guys, but you got the big picture idea. Well, maybe I should say this. This is all about Jesus too. We're going to get to that in great detail next week. But the wisdom of God is Jesus. Okay, I know I already said that, but yeah, no, I want to do it next week in more detail. So let's wait. Any questions? Please just raise your hand. No, I can't see you raising your hand, so don't do that.
So just, yeah.
What?
Do it, Caden.
This might be off topic, but Solomon is supposed to be the most wise of the kings, but it's pretty obvious that he also makes pretty poor decisions. Is there a reason that we, or whoever it is, decided to call Solomon the wisest of all kings, or the wisest man in the Bible, in history?
Well, we're the ones who call him that, the wisest of all kings. But certainly people saw that the size of the kingdom, right? So his wisdom shows because the kingdom expands under him and under David. So yeah, there's just that story about him asking God for wisdom in the Bible and God giving it to him. But then once we see that he's been given wisdom, once he's made the right decision, right, to choose the apple, he still has to choose every single day that apple again, or not the apple. And he's still left with this. And that's why I said it's really mankind. It's us. It's the same story that we have every single day. It's wonderful that 20 years ago you made a decision to be wise and to follow Jesus and to do all these things. That's great. But what about today? What about this morning? What about tonight when you're about to make this big decision? Right? So wisdom is not something that you just have forever. It's something that you're constantly taking this step forward. So I would call him the wisest of the kings in some of the places, right? He has that legendary attribute of wisdom around him. But he also chooses all of the, I mean, this is the example of, this is Solomon, right? This is what he chooses. He chooses all these women that are this. They're discreet, secret, darkness. They're these, throughout the Old Testament, they are the whores, right? They're and it doesn't mean that they're actually bad people, but they're choosing non-Israel. He's choosing these wives from all over. And what they do is they seduce him into not following God's law or not being wise anymore. They do exactly what it is that we see all the way back here and throughout all of Israel's time too. Right? So Solomon is just another example of this Adam motif.
When are we going to get it together?
What?
When are we going to get it together?
When are we going to get it together? There's a great question. I don't know. I mean, how are we supposed to get it together?
How are we supposed to get it together?
So this is wisdom, right? It's studying things like this together or doing community kinds of conversations. What does this look like? You know, this is something that is not thought of a lot. This is the reason we have elders, right? In our churches, they're supposed to be not the greatest businessmen, not the people who do all the little tasks and computer experts. They're supposed to be the people of wisdom. So that when you struggle with something, you're supposed to go to the elders and get advice. Right? These are things that you're dealing with. Does that make sense? Like, I don't know whether I should take a new job. How many of you have ever asked your elders whether you should move out of the city and take a new job? Yeah? Yeah, good job.
Yeah.
That's unusual, right? Usually we decide to do something and then we tell our church what we've decided to do. That's missing a lot. There might be a time when you have to do that, of course, right? You have to say, okay, I don't trust my elders anymore. I need to move out of this particular church. That could happen. That shouldn't happen often. Usually you should go to those people who are wiser, who make wise decisions. Now, I can tell you, as an elder for the last 15 years, that I do not always make wise decisions. I can think of a few hugely unwise decisions that I've made over the last year. So you probably shouldn't trust me an awful lot on everything. Or you should at least discern. You should listen, take this with a grain of salt, talk with other wise people that you know, see what comes out of that. So when are we going to get it together? I guess when Jesus comes back. I have to assume. Because Jesus is wisdom, right?
Right.
So he's the wisdom of God. He's the exact representation of his nature. This is what John 1 is doing with the Logos idea. This is what Paul is doing in Colossians with him being the wisdom of God.
So just as a reminder, or from you, if we are always destined to choose not wisdom over wisdom when we're given the option, or at least sometimes we can choose wisdom, sometimes we don't. But in the end, we can never really choose wisdom every time. What's the purpose of trying? Should we do what we want? Like the striving to choose wisdom is the goal? Like, is our goal just to strive to choose wisdom every time? Because our goal can't be choosing wisdom every time, because we can't, thousands of years of history and the Bible shows us that we are unable to do that, like innately.
Yeah, I mean, but that's like saying, well, we will sin, but why bother to try to not sin? Like, yeah, we'll make foolish decisions sometimes because we're human. But I do think it's our job to try to be wise in all areas to make the best possible decision. So I think there might be times that we can have fun. That doesn't mean we're not being wise. Like, okay, so here you go. Here's an example. It's not where you're going, but like walking into a casino and spending $20. All right. I can pretty much guarantee you 99% of the time you're going to lose that $20 that you walk into that casino with. Right? So that's unwise to play. On the other hand, if you're playing and you're realizing it, maybe it's not foolishness, truly. So I think that's not really what you were asking, but just another thought that I had in there. You know, $20 is what you're going to spend on going to the movies for 2 hours. Go $20 and go play slots for, I mean, why not? Just have some fun. So setting that aside though, I still think we should choose wisdom. I don't know why we wouldn't. I think this is the whole path of scripture. What are you going to choose?
What happens when you choose wisdom, but there are like 2 wisdom choices and then it ends poorly anyway?
Yeah, that's a great question. Does anybody have a good answer? Because I don't know that I have. It's one thing when one is clearly foolish and one is clearly wise, right? But
Right. Well, and then, the outcome, obviously, because we're dealing with people who also get choices about wisdom and folly. So we're dealing with people who have the choices too. So they make choices against our wisdom choice or whatever. And then, the circumstance ends up, not like what you thought. Then
somebody else messes up, even though you had made a wise choice, it ended up with the results of a foolish choice because somebody else messed up your choice.
right. Yeah. It's just, like you're saying, we can't really, is there an arrival point? Is there ever like you said, is there ever fully true wisdom? Like the point of it, kind of like what Caden said, like if there's always something bad could happen anyway, what's the point?
I think I'm going to stand by my answer from before.
Well, think of love as well. Love has the opportunity of hurting yourself, and people are not perfect. So why love anybody if you don't worry about getting hurt about it?
Right. Yeah, you can use that example for anything, right? That idea that just because it's not going to work out, well, why try and do it? But it does work out often. So maybe that's a good thing to talk about, right? Blessings and cursings. There's this idea, of course, in the Bible that if we do what is right, if we make the right choice, we head towards wisdom, then the consequences will be life, always. Everything will be good. If we choose folly, things are going to be bad. But we look around in the world and we see lots of people who choose folly seem to do just fine. Lots of people who choose wisdom end up with crap lives. Right? This is Jesus living a perfectly wise life and still being crucified. Right? Or this is us living a life full of folly and heading for exile, and him reversing that, giving us life.
So you keep making the wrong.
Because
what if we know the right decision to make, but we keep making the wrong decision? And so on our own power, we're incapable of making the right choice. But we somehow ask God, and somewhere in this we say, God, I cannot do this on my own. I need your help. He intervenes, and all of a sudden that powerlessness turns into. I think
this is the book of James, right?
This is the goal, right? I think that's the goal, I guess, because on our own power, this is kind of going to what I think your son was. I don't know who it was, but like we're screwing it up. My choices are screwing this thing up. God, I need you to intervene.
Yeah, and that is right. That's Adam's thing. Will he choose with God in the direction when God told him what to do?
Yeah.
Don't touch that. Right? Stay away from that. And he still chose the wrong path. But yeah, James says if you ask for wisdom, he'll give it to you. He'll help you through those kinds of things. By the way, for James, wisdom is the same as the Spirit. So take a look at that sometimes and see how he defines wisdom being wise. It's always the way the Spirit works, but I can't give you too much information on that. But I agree. I mean, the world is terrible. We choose the wrong thing a lot.
don't you think that the point is not about managing the circumstances or the result? It's about choosing to be obedient and trusting God for the outcome?
Yes, but I want to emphasize, for sure, you're 100% right. But I want to emphasize that God is telling us these general truisms for a reason. So I think he is actually saying, choose this path because this path usually leads to this result. Then I think you'd read other wisdom literature that tells you otherwise, like it doesn't always lead to this result. Choose it because it's the right thing to do, regardless of whether it leads to the right result. Right? Obey God anyway, fear God anyway, right? This is the book of Ecclesiastes. Whatever. Right? It's all hevel. It doesn't even matter. It's all vapor. It doesn't even matter. Choose God anyway, he says. Choose the fear of the Lord anyway.
Wisdom is like faith.
What?
Like, wisdom is like faith, a grain of mustard seed.
Yeah. A very little bit of wisdom goes a long way. And faith, yeah, same way. Yep.
And obedience, in spite of whatever the results are, does lead to life and not to separation.
Correct. Yep. In the spiritual sense, that's true. So Proverbs, we can take it two different ways, right? We can just take it as a normal, here are the ways this, if you save your money, you'll have money later on, right? Very simple physical connection there, but it doesn't always work out. But you're right, in a spiritual way, it does always work out. If you obey God, if you choose life, choose wisdom, you will one day get Jesus, right? In that full sense, you'll get heaven, you'll get connection with God. So as long as you're spiritualizing it, yes. I'm not convinced that Proverbs is spiritualized or is meant to be overly spiritualized. I think it's very practical. It's everyday kinds of things. But what you're saying is absolutely certain. Is absolutely true too. All right, it's 6:10. Any other comments you want to make? Brilliant ways that we can be wise?
Stand on tiptoe.
Stand on tiptoe.
Rush ahead and you don't get too far.
Wait, what? Rush ahead.
And you won't get too far.
Okay.
Stand on tiptoe. You won't stand too firm. Try to shine. You dim your own light.
Try to shine and you dim your own light. Okay, cool. I like it. Did you make that up?
No.
Is it like a famous Russian proverb?
No, it's from the Tao.
From who?
The Tao.
Oh, okay. So he's giving that. Those are good. So he's giving us a Taoist proverb. So yeah, they come from all over, and they're all general truisms. All right, I'm ending this. Thanks, you guys. Good to see you. Feel free to stick around, but I am most likely going to try to stop this and then restart it because this is no fun for me. So